What's up, people? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Swedish retro rock band Graveyard. The band's new album, 6, released on September 29th on Nuclear Blast Records. As enduring and authentic as an old school leather jacket, Graveyard have long since mastered the art of rock and roll. Formed in 2006 in Gothenburg, Sweden, they shared passion for hard rock, psychedelia, and the eternal bedrock of blues marked them out from the start. We had plans to start recording or writing an album before the pandemic started, but then everything shut down. Maybe we shut down too, you know? We couldn't make any money from playing anymore, so everybody started getting jobs and stuff like that, and everything took a lot longer than was expected. During the recording, we had a COVID scare, and we had to cancel things for a while, so it all took a long while, but mostly because we didn't have time. We were working and taking care of family, whatever was needed most. Fast forward to 2023, Graveyard have completed their latest full-length recording, and memories of gloomy lockdown are fast fading. This band have evolved yet again, both in terms of personnel and on a profound musical level. Simply titled 6, the band's 6th studio record may be instantly recognisable as the work of Nilsson and his comrades, but this is a very different kind of Graveyard album. We only make music that feels right at the time, when we're making it, says Nilsson. I mean, the main thing was we wanted to make a more guitar-driven album. We tried to make the albums as different as possible, but we always do that and people don't often hear it. Maybe for once people will hear we've made something different from what we normally do. Meanwhile, Graveyard have stepped outside their comfort zone this time around and renewed collaboration with a dear old friend who has also had a huge impact on the new songs, freshness and verve. Master of knobs and faders on the band's early works, Swedish producer.
You're a bad man.
I shouldn't have stopped there. Don Alsterberg returned to capture 6 in its gritty, groovy glory. We worked with Don on your first 3 albums, and he's now back on the 6th. Nilsson explains, we had other producers on the 4th and 5th records, but I'm happy he's back for this one. We started recording 6 in an old studio in Sweden called Silence. It's a rural foresty sort of studio in one of the darkest parts of a county in Sweden called Värmland. It's a really nice place, but we didn't have anything written yet, so we were only there for a week. We started recording guitars and drums for 3 or 4 songs, then we decided to use Don's own personal studio here in Gothenburg. It was the most convenient choice. After dabbling momentarily with digital technology on their last album, Peace, Graveyard have reverted to their original ethos on 6, captured using analog equipment only. The new songs have the kind of raw and sometimes primitive edge that simply can't be faked. 6 sounds as old as the hills, but as fresh as the daisies that grow on them. So, Duncan, it's been 5 years since the last album, Peace,
Yep.
which was a good album. Not my favourite Graveyard release.
Peace is a fine album.
It's fine,
just not memorable at all.
Yeah. But after we reacted to the track Twice, that's the second track on the album, I was definitely the most excited I've been for a Graveyard album in a while. Like, that track was like all I wanted from the band. I was like, yes, give me that. Give me the rest of the album. I wasn't sure where they were going to go on the rest of the album, but if that first single was anything to go by, then this was going to be good. What about yourself? I imagine you were pretty excited to check out the new Graveyard.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Graveyard.
Yeah.
My introduction to the band was back in our old fucking website days when Lights Out came out in 2011. And I was borderline obsessed with that album, and then got a chance to see them live in what would have been the ABC2 before that building fucking burned to the ground. And they were incredible live. And I even want to say I did like an interview with them as well. But they were so good live. And back then they only had the 3 albums. And what's interesting is at the time when I was like really into Lights Out, which I still think is an incredible album, Hinsigan Blues, which was the previous album, was one that I could take or leave, and actually over time it's kind of grown out as being maybe one of my favourite things the band's ever done. I've really found my place with that. I think the first album was great, but I think it's almost a little bit of a cliche where the band are kind of experiment with things without necessarily having the focus.
Yeah.
Then there was a bit of a gap between Innocence and Decadence, where I think the band may have split up and then come back together, and then Peace. So I wasn't expecting anything from them. It has been a while since that. Well, 2018. What's that? It's 5 years since the previous album, and then it was 4 years in between albums before. So, I was kind of. I don't know. I think Graveyard are a band where I know the Graveyard I like.
Yep.
And when they deviate a bit from it, I kind of go with it, but I don't love it.
Yeah.
So what I was looking for and what Twice gave me when we heard it as a single was a return to a kind of earlier sound. And that makes sense off the back of what you're saying about production as well. It kind of grabbed me, and it brought out the best elements of that kind of 70s rocky bluesy thing that arguably they're one of the best rock acts in the world at doing. And it captured everything. I was under no illusions before hitting play on this one that this was going to be a moody son of a bitch, because that's what Graveyard do. And I think some people forget that. If you only ever listen to Graveyard singles, you will forget that they are masters of the craft of just creating mood. Mood and atmosphere are this band's bedrock. So yeah, I was incredibly excited. The fact they're on Nuclear Blast and Nuclear Blast are just hitting home runs left, right and centre at the moment. And what I will say is the two singles I'd heard before listening to the album, I was already of the opinion that this was not only my favourite Graveyard production, but one of my favourite productions I've heard this year.
Ooh.
Like that kind of analogy, like rich tone just comes through in every string that's plucked. Like on those tracks. I was like, let's see if it goes through. It did not fucking disappoint. This album was one of my favourite produced albums this year. I think it is so intrinsically linked to the band's sound, it's difficult to separate them. So
Yeah, I'd agree. I think, like, just to start with production, I think this is like vintage in every way possible. Like, it's in my opinion, Graveyard should always go analog. Like
100%.
Every album.
Yeah.
Because not only does it suit their sound down to the ground, but it's so fucking authentic sounding. Like this has got the character of the 70s, but with the professionalism of something current. It sounds incredibly warm, really textured, so much personality in this production, and it's a production that will transport you to that era that the band's sound lives in. I'm always in awe of a production that can do that, and Don Alsterberg has absolutely knocked it out of the park on the production front. It sounds fantastic. Like, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, the sound of this is incredible. And what about the album itself? What did you think of 6 as an album?
I love it. So Twice is a deceptive single.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like all Graveyard opening singles are deceptive singles because they tend to lead with the rockiest track.
Yeah.
As a way to kind of lull you in. If you're hardened to their sound, you know there's more under the hood, and you know that they really do like a croon. They like to strip things back and do a kind of almost a kind of 50s Americana sort of, plenty of broom. We're gonna let that ring, and then bring in the rest. And this album was fucking full of that.
Yeah.
Vocally, this is the best album that Graveyard have ever done. I think his raspy tone has always been amazing. It's not that he's doing anything different. I just think the choice of melody is spot on. I felt in previous albums he stretches. And into areas that sometimes don't necessarily work for me, or it almost becomes a scream to reach things. He doesn't do that here. He actually stays weirdly vocally in the pocket, but it's got so much rich depth to it. He's discovered this. He's done it in previous albums, but he's using it a lot more here. This deeper tone that he can hit.
Yeah.
And that stuff like shivers up my spine, man. I love it. You get those guitars with the ring out sounds, this kind of clean, kind of it's weird to describe. It's like this kind of clear, kind of clean, old school kind of 60s guitar tone without distortion, and him crooning over the top of that is like, it's an eargasm for me. I think it's a super fucking strong album because it starts off with Gotnat, which I mean, you don't need to speak Swedish to know that that's good night. We are in the UK the product of many invasions from people over that side, so inherently kind of the Anglo-Saxon Gotnat is good night, and it is a beautiful opening track. It's haunting. A lot of this album is haunting.
Yeah.
It's haunting, and it's pernicious, and it kind of hangs like a weird kind of veil of smoke over the top of you. And it's beautifully textured and tempoed. And as an opener, it's just as sublime. It's definitely not what you would expect to hear if you'd heard Twice and nothing else. And then Twice kicks in, and that's this album gets a fucking shot of adrenaline, a kick up the arse, and just goes for it. Fucking incredible riff, amazing chorus, just like absolutely awesome. And then it brings it back down again with I Follow You, which like once again plays with more of the rockier elements, but it's like a weird amalgam of both Gotnat and Twice. It has both those elements in there. And then the album takes its first opportunity to really hit you with that mood and texture and breathe in, breathe out, which is a somber, almost gospel at parts sort of track. It has those kind of gospel backing vocals. It's fucking incredible. And what I love about them is their confidence in their songwriting. Like, the singles that have been released for this are single length. The rest of the album is predominantly not single length. They will happily churn out a 5-minute song and let you almost wallow in the intro and the outro. It has a real personality about it. The track that comes next is Sad Song, which is a sad sounding song. Like, they hit the nail on the head. And it was at that point, by this point in the album, the midway mark, that I really realised that, to their credit, the music is utterly amazing on this. Like, it's all the other stuff that the second guitar's doing, where it's just hitting like a chord and just letting it ring, or it's playing like a clean note and just letting that like sit in the background. And with all the production, I was just kind of floored by it. The drums are so crisp, man. Just like this really crisp, warm, alive sound. The bass work is fucking awesome because it doesn't go beyond what you want, but it's prominent in the mix in a way that just those bands of that era, the bass, you don't have to stand in front of the bass player and show him the riff, right? You played your bit, and he from here would be like, right, that note, that, right, well, I've got my thing, and he would go away and do it. And that's what I've always loved about Graveyard. When I saw them live, they came out on stage dressed like bands would in the 70s, with suede jackets, with tassels hanging from the arms. It's not a gimmick, it's a way of life for them. Just a Drop like picks things back up again, like it kind of hits you in a way where we're like, that, right, we've had that bit there, we've had the album kind of slowing down. It starts slow but has a bit of pace to it. Bright Lights, I think, is the second single. Once again, like, kind of, it's the more croonier of the two singles. And then you get a 1-2 punch on No Way Out and Rampant Fields of just really brilliant songwriting and atmosphere. Return to Form feels like when you say a band's returning to form, that denotes that the band lost form.
Yeah.
I don't think Graveyard ever lost their form.
No.
I think production choices and maybe not necessarily a full appreciation of their craft and what they do in music and what they're very good at in music may have sidelined them. I don't think Graveyard have a bad album. I think 6 is an exceptional album. I think this is like genuinely top tier Graveyard. Might be my favourite Graveyard album. I think this is... I've spun this to fucking death. This is... you listen to it so many different times, but like the best time is like like with a lot of the albums I listen to, is at night, great pair of headphones, darkened room, and just let it absorb you. It's quite something special from a band who could have easily just continued churning out albums like the last two, and they would have been fine. But if their statement was to kind of get people to realise that every album has its own sound while still being Graveyard, this one above all else does that. It's the one where I feel like they're most confident they've ever been. Like on every instrument, on every song. I thought this was absolutely fucking brilliant.
Nice.
Dave,
I kind of I agree with a lot of that. I think it's definitely a mood album for me. Definitely have to be in the right kind of frame of mind to listen to it. It reminds me of another album that we reviewed a while back, which I'll come to. But as for the kind of sound of the album, it's kind of what I was hoping for on a Graveyard album. It's, as I said, it's very vintage, in every way possible. It's very well done. It's a very well done album and very Graveyard, but without it sounding like they've just repeated material from a previous album. Peace was like a little bit more kind of rhythm driven, a bit more kind of hard hitting, with the volume really cranked on that album.
That's where that digital side doesn't benefit them.
Yeah, absolutely. 6,
where you lose the richness of it and it becomes kind of almost staticky.
Yeah. 6 is not that at all. It has touches of like psychedelia from Innocence and Decadence, with some of the hooks of like Lights Out, which is my personal favourite. But overall, I didn't feel like it really sounded like any of those albums. This is more measured, more soulful, a bit more inward looking as well. It still has like bursts throughout where the album gets a little bit more riff heavy, and they push that intensity a little bit more, like they do on Twice. But you'll hear from the outset on that opening track that this is mostly steeped in melancholy. It's heavy on the blues. Like there's so many blues licks on this, both vocally and musically, which feature very heavily on the album. But they're incredibly good at it. So I didn't have an issue with this release being more kind of bluesy than usual, and it fits the kind of theme of the album of what they were trying to capture, because this is a darker album from Graveyard, much more so than its predecessors. You can hear that on certain tracks throughout the album where they've pushed it in a more kind of mysterious, kind of smoky kind of direction. Breathe In, Breathe Out has has it in the chord choices and the vocal delivery, along with some really well placed organ sounds, which really adds that vintage vibe. The album I was talking about earlier that it kind of makes me think of, although they don't sound the same stylistically, is Phil Anselmo's other project, N Minor. There was something in the feeling of this album that kind of connected the two.
I got like Swaths of Dawnwalker in here.
All right, okay.
Like, on that previous album, like that kind of, what I mentioned at the time, that kind of what I class as kind of vintage Americana.
Yeah.
With those just the ability to let like things ring out with reverb and all the rest. It it has that. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Actually, in Minor pair really fucking good with this.
I felt like when I was listening to it, tracks like Sad Song, which have very slow, intimate, melancholy delivery, or Bright Lights, which are again a really somber kind of vocal melody, just kind of put me in the same kind of likeness as the N Minor album. I think there's a bit more bit more focus and a bit more variety from the vocals on this album as well. Personally, I think they sound better than ever on this one. It's again very 70s, full of warmth and character. No Way Out for me was just awesome. Like on one of my favorites for sure. It's very soulful. I love that mix of the raspy vocals and the clean vocals. So you've got Joachim and Jonathan both doing vocals, and their tones are very different textures, but they work so well together. In terms of the kind of what you would class as the kind of rockier material on the album, they get into a few times on the album, and it's great to hear when they do. Twice is probably the most catchy and upbeat that they get on the album. It's an absolute highlight for sure, like just an absolute banger of a track. I Follow You, I liked as well. It's got a bit of a mix of sounds. Has a almost kind of garage rock kind of type twang to it, but with this like almost post-punk kind of streak underneath it. Just a drop again, kind of pushes the energy and fuzz a bit more, but still keeping that like haze of like psychedelia included as well. And the end of No Way Out does have a really good kind of climax of gospel vocals and kind of quite warm, kind of distorted guitars and that kind of gutsy rasp that it does. For me, the only thing was I felt like I could have done with maybe one more kind of bigger track, something a bit punchier somewhere in the album for me. I felt like as much as I enjoyed the kind of bluesy and relaxed stuff, I felt like there was a part in the album where it was maybe just simmering for a little too long, and I was like, right, I'm ready for something a bit more edgy just to slot in right now. I think it's just a personal thing. I really like that side of their sound. That being said, I think this album was probably one of their most accessible. I think they've really given us an album that's very kind of easy on the ear. There's nothing here that will overly challenge you as a listener. There's nothing like too avant-garde on this at all. Like it's a very easygoing listening.
It has depth in the songwriting.
Absolutely.
If you want to search out, like if your ears are in like review mode, you'll pick out loads.
Yeah.
But you can totally listen to this album on the superficial level and get the same appreciation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing is it is darker in places than I've heard them go before, but at the same time it's got a kind of mood and a feel that also fits well with their back catalogue. So I feel like a lot of this will transfer really well into the live set as well. Final thing I want to say is, if you're into vinyl, this is a must. You need to buy this album because this is going to sound incredible on vinyl because that production is just fantastic. So 100%, if you buy records, if you get vinyl, this is a absolute need for your collection. Okay, so what do we think score-wise for Graveyard's 6? What are you thinking?
So this is a 4.5 from me.
Nice.
The reason it's a 4.5 is I've listened to other albums in this time frame that have challenged me to be a little bit more brutal with my grades overall.
True.
I would not be surprised if we get to the end of the year and this is in the top 20 because it serves the purpose of giving me something that is inherently different. I can't stress enough. I am overjoyed that they're back. You need to see them live. You've never seen them live. They're fucking incredible live. And this material, like I know you're saying there's maybe the one banger missing on this album. In a live setting, that's not an issue.
No, it's not.
Because they have albums and albums full of those bangers. So for me, that didn't really bother me as much because I've got that in my head that they're a band that has loads of those. And as a result, it kind of it felt like it genuinely felt like the band were like trying to exercise something or purge something or get it all out on this album, and it's there in every song. It really does. It kind of just sits over you like some weird spectre. So yeah, it's 4.5 for me. I think it is brilliant. I can't wait to see them live. Hopefully they'll come to Scotland. And once again, can't stress this enough. Production's amazing, and this is another nuclear blast home run.
Yep.
Like every band they've touched this year that are an established band anyway are putting out the best material the bands have ever put out. So nice. I'm I'm excited, Dave. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Where are you going with this one then?
I'm a 4 on this one. I think it's moody, it's captivating, it's produced perfectly for the sound I went for on 6. I prefer this to their last album for sure. It's still not quite that 2012 album for me. That's like
Lights Out is
my favourite.
probably that perfect mix of banger and
Yeah.
and mood for you, isn't it?
Yeah, but when I'm in the mood for something a little darker and mysterious, then I'll definitely check this out again. It's
You know
kind
who
of
they should tour with?
who?
Riverhead.
Oh,
Chef's kiss.
that's a good pair.
Work here done. Check please. You imagine Riverhead opening for Graveyard?
That'd be good. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely could hear that for sure.
I know. This is what I do. I should be. I'm Cilla Black. Oh, surprise, surprise. Or Blind Date. Blind Date's probably better than Surprise, surprise. Yeah, I'm just like a matchmaker. This is what I do.
Yeah.
Like, get that, make that. Jakob, I don't know if you listen to all these. Make that happen.
Yeah.
If anyone
Make
can
it
do it,
happen.
you can do it.
So Graveyard and their new album 6 is out on September 29th on Nuclear Blast. Links below to the band, to the pre-order. Check them out. Check out this album. Let us know what you think. That is a review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.